You may have wondered why some men effortlessly attract women almost like a magnet. It's not always about your looks, your money, or even your charm. There's a deeper, more primal reason women are drawn to a specific kind of man, and it has everything to do with how you lead. In this video, you'll discover the surprising truth behind this universal attraction. This is where most men misunderstand attraction. They chase, they plead, they negotiate, they attempt to earn affection through effort, attention, gifts, or emotional exposure. They move as if affection is a prize granted by her rather than a response drawn out by you. But a woman is not pulled by the man who works the hardest to impress her. She's pulled by the man whose presence organizes the space around him, the man whose direction shapes the emotional tone of the room, the man whose certainty steadies her internal world. Women are drawn to the man who leads because leadership signals something ancient, something primal, something coded into her deepest emotional evaluation mechanisms long before language existed. You begin to see it when you step back and observe human interactions with an unclouded eye. When a man lacks direction, he seeks permission. When he seeks permission, he becomes dependent. When he becomes dependent, he unconsciously places the woman in the role of the emotional leader. And the moment she is placed in that role, her attraction begins to dissolve. Not because she dislikes him, not because she is cold or ungrateful, but because her nervous system interprets the dynamic as unsafe. A woman does not want to guide a man through his own life, not because she lacks the capacity, but because she is not built to feel desire when she is the one steering the ship. She may care for him, she may support him, she may feel sympathy or affection, but her body will not respond with the fire of attraction. Attraction is not kindness. Attraction is the instinctive recognition of strength. When you lead, you are not controlling her, you are shaping yourself. Leadership is not dominance over another person. It is dominance over your own impulses, your own emotional storms, your own anxieties, your own uncertainty. Women don't follow men who bark orders, who perform masculinity like a costume, who confuse volume with authority. Women follow the man who moves with that quiet, grounded assurance that comes from knowing who he is and what he will not compromise. Leadership begins inside the man, long before it ever appears in how he speaks or moves. It begins in the unseen places, the mind, the intention, the patience, the refusal to fold under emotional pressure. The average man has been taught to believe that if he simply expresses how much he cares, he will be rewarded. He pours himself out, thinking that transparency alone will prove sincerity. But transparency without strength is vulnerability without structure, and vulnerability without structure creates emotional dissonance rather than intimacy. A woman feels safe in the presence of a man who can feel deeply and still remain composed, not a man who collapses under the weight of his own emotions. When you can carry your feelings without letting them dictate your identity or your choices, you create an emotional environment where she can relax, where she can feel, where she can soften, because she knows she is not being asked to hold what you cannot hold yourself. Leading is not rushing, demanding, forcing, or controlling. Leading is the quiet ownership of the moment. When you decide where you are going and move with calm intention, you give her something to respond to. Women are responsive creatures by nature. They do not choose the direction first. They respond to the direction that feels most rooted in truth, purpose, and inner steadiness. When you hesitate, avoid decision, defer endlessly, or collapse into indecision, she may not consciously register it, but something inside her begins to drift away. Attraction is not simply excitement. Attraction is trust. And trust is built on the perception of stability. You lead when you speak slowly, instead of rushing to fill silence. You lead when you choose your actions rather than reacting from insecurity. You lead when you are unshaken by her tests, not because you are trying to win, but because your certainty was never dependent on her reactions in the first place. Tests are not challenges to your ego. They are her way of confirming that the man she is drawn to exists beyond the surface. She is asking, without words, "Are you anchored? Are you real? Can I lean into you without falling?" A woman does not want to be above you, nor does she want to be below you. She wants to move beside you, walking in the same direction, carried by the same current. But she cannot walk beside you if you are not already moving. Leadership is motion. Leadership is direction. Leadership is the man who does not wait to feel certain before acting, but who acts because he has decided that certainty will be forged through action. When you become that man, something shifts. The world quiets around you. Your voice gains weight. Your presence shapes the atmosphere. You no longer chase, because there is nothing to chase. You are the origin point of movement. You are the axis of the experience. And when a woman feels that, she does not follow because you asked her to. She follows because her entire emotional system recognizes that you are the place where she can rest. The reason leadership carries such force in the realm of attraction is because it communicates something far deeper than confidence. It conveys orientation. A woman does not fall for a man simply because he stands tall or speaks clearly. She responds to the man whose inner world is ordered, whose priorities are not scattered, whose values are not borrowed from the crowd. Leadership begins with the invisible architecture of your mind. Before a woman ever feels drawn to your presence, she is unconsciously reading your internal alignment. She is sensing whether you move from conviction or from hunger for approval. The former creates gravity, the latter drains it. When you carry yourself as a man who leads, you are not performing masculinity, you are embodying direction. You do not force your will on others, nor do you collapse into indecision to avoid conflict. You move with a calm inevitability, as though your life is guided by a compass that does not waver when questioned. This steadiness is what a woman seeks, not because she wants to be controlled, but because she wants to feel the relief of not having to hold everything herself. When a woman encounters a man who has mastered his own nature, she feels the quiet certainty that she can soften in his presence. Softness is not weakness, it is her return to her natural emotional state. But she can only return to that state when she trusts the strength of the one beside her. There is a reason Stoic philosophy speaks of control, not of others, but of the self. You are not responsible for her emotions, her reactions, or her storms. You are responsible for maintaining the clarity of your own mind amidst them. To lead a relationship is to remain unmoved in your core while still being deeply attuned. You are not cold, you are composed. You are not distant, you are grounded. When a woman speaks with intensity, she is not always demanding resolution. Often, she is seeking a container strong enough to hold her expression. If you meet her intensity with your own, both of you burn. If you collapse in the presence of her feelings, you place the emotional weight back onto her. But if you remain rooted, if your tone stays stable, if your breathing remains slow and deep, she feels that you can hold space for her without losing yourself. That is leadership in its most intimate form. Yet leadership is also direction in motion. You must know where you are going, not in the sense of rigid plans or fixed timelines, but in the sense that your life is pulled forward by a purpose that transcends immediate gratification. A man without purpose clings to relationships as a means of identity, hoping that closeness will grant him meaning. But a man who leads draws meaning from within and invites others to share his path without demanding validation from them. A woman can feel the difference instantly. One man needs her to complete him. The other man invites her to join him. One asks for emotional permission to exist. The other lives from a foundation that cannot be negotiated away. She is drawn to the latter, not because she wishes to follow blindly, but because his direction reflects stability, and stability gives rise to trust. There is also the element of mystery, not secrecy born out of avoidance, but depth that comes from inner silence. When you do not rush to explain yourself, when you do not justify your every choice, you create room for her imagination to enter. The human mind is magnetized by what it cannot fully grasp. Women do not fall for men who tell them everything. They fall for the man whose quiet presence suggests a world beneath the surface, layered, disciplined, forged, and slowly revealed through action rather than speech. This is where Machiavellian restraint becomes invaluable. Not manipulation, but the wisdom to reveal only what is necessary, to speak only when meaning is required, to guide without announcing that you are guiding. Authority is most powerful when it is felt rather than declared. To lead is also to accept solitude, not emotional isolation, but the understanding that the man who decides his direction will walk stretches of his path without applause, without recognition, without external reassurance. A man who fears walking alone cannot lead, because leadership often means stepping into space where others have not yet found the courage to stand. When you allow silence to become your ally, when you no longer require constant affirmation, you gain a presence that others instinctively respect. A woman feels it before she can describe it, a steadiness that does not tremble in the absence of approval. Your leadership must not be reactionary. If your direction depends on her mood, her attention, or her responses, then you are not leading, you are following her emotional movement. A woman does not want you to react to her. She wants you to receive her. She wants you to listen, to understand, to witness, but not to be thrown from your axis. Her emotions move like the tides, but your presence must stand like the shoreline, shaped but not swept away. This is where true attraction ignites. When she realizes that your direction is not dependent on her validation, she begins to relax into your energy. She begins to trust. She begins to open. She begins to feel the ancient pull toward the man whose steps do not falter in the presence of her uncertainty. She does not follow you because you demanded her attention. She follows because she recognizes that you are already moving, already grounded, already whole. What you must understand now is that a woman does not fall for a man in the surface, moments where attraction appears visible. She falls in the quiet spaces where she observes how you move through life. When she watches how you respond to unforeseen pressure, how you handle disappointment without collapsing into self-pity, how you remain patient in the presence of uncertainty, how you choose your words with purpose rather than reacting from impulse. Leadership is revealed not in grand gestures, but in the subtle details that shape your daily being. The man who leads is not defined by what he says, but by what he consistently embodies. In truth, a woman is not drawn to the idea of being led. She is drawn to the relief of not having to lead the emotional direction of the relationship. She wants to feel her feelings freely, without the burden of determining the atmosphere, without having to gauge whether you will crumble beneath the weight of her expression. When you lead, you are granting her the freedom to be as she is, without carrying the emotional stability for both of you. Your steadiness becomes a sanctuary, not a cage, not a demand, but a refuge from the chaos of the world and the chaos of her own shifting inner seasons. She does not want to be the source of your identity. She wants to rest in the presence of a man who already possesses one. And yet, leadership does not mean you become unmovable stone. It means you are unshaken in your core, even as you remain deeply attuned. You can listen without absorbing her storm. You can feel compassion without losing your center. You can hold her in silence without needing to be right or to win. True leadership in love is not dominance over emotion. It is mastery within emotion. It is the calm recognition that your emotional state is your responsibility, not hers, and that you do not require her agreement in order to retain your direction. This is the quiet power that most men never learn, because they are taught to either suppress their emotions or dissolve within them, but you are learning to carry them with intention. That is the difference. When you lead in this way, something profound begins to shift in how she perceives you. Her voice softens, her guard lowers, her eyes linger longer when she looks at you, not because you demanded change, but because your presence invites her nervous system into ease. She stops testing for your center because she feels it. She stops competing for control because there is nothing to compete with. Your identity is not something she can take or threaten. She stops worrying about being disappointed, abandoned, or forced to carry emotional weight alone, because your consistency has proven that you are a man who stands. And when a woman feels that, her affection deepens into devotion. But devotion cannot be asked for. It cannot be negotiated, persuaded, or performed into existence. Devotion rises naturally when a woman encounters a man whose life is governed by principle, not by desire for approval. She is not devoted to you because you are perfect. She is devoted because your direction is unwavering, your internal order is steady, and your presence gives her something to rise into. Women do not desire a man they must hold upright. They desire a man who stands firmly enough that she can lean into him without fear that he will collapse. You will notice the transformation not in loud moments, but in small ones. The way she reaches for your hand without thinking, the way she watches you when you do not know she is watching, the way she listens when you speak, not because you demand attention, but because the weight of your words is earned by the way you move. The way she chooses to follow your lead without hesitation, because she trusts the direction you are moving toward. Leadership becomes the current that shapes the relationship, and attraction deepens into something that feels as though it existed long before the two of you ever met. And yet the final truth is this: you do not lead for her, you lead because you were born to. Because the core of your masculine nature is not fulfilled by comfort or by emotional validation, but by direction and purpose. You become unshakable, not to impress her, but because your life demands a center that cannot be moved by circumstance or emotion. You do not strengthen yourself for her approval. You strengthen yourself because the world requires a man capable of carrying his own weight without collapsing. When you live this way, attraction is not something you chase. It is something you radiate. Return now to the beginning, to the question of why some men draw women without effort, without performance, without struggle. It is not because they are lucky. It is because their presence communicates orientation, an inner compass set firmly toward a path greater than themselves. Women gravitate to the man who leads because leadership is the language of safety, of direction, of grounded desire, of anchored thought. It is the calm center of the world she wants to enter. When you lead with steadiness, patience, internal clarity, and quiet conviction, you are not just attractive, you are unforgettable. And when she looks at you, really looks, she will not see a man trying to become something. She will see a man who already is, a man who stands, a man who moves with purpose, a man who knows where he is going. And in that recognition, she will not just follow. She will choose to walk beside you willingly, fully, and without fear.